Okay, good day to each and everyone, especially to those students who will be taking their licensure examinations for teachers. By the way, I am Dr. Eloy Aenlle from Juan Sumulong High School here in Manila, here in Cubao, Quezon City, and a former part-time faculty at the Faculty of Arts and Languages, Philippine Normal University, Manila. So for this day, I'll be handling, and I would like also to share with you guys the definition of the teaching profession and all the things that are actually included in this field. So, before I start my discussion at this point in time, let me just share to you what would be the coverage of our lecture for this afternoon. So, these are some of the objectives that I would like also to infuse and discuss in this particular lecture. So, the first one would be to understand what is teaching profession is all about, followed by to appreciate historical foundations in relation to teaching, and then the third one would be to apply all the foundations in teaching and learning. So these are some of the things that I'll be discussing, and later on we will be also having some of the historical things that goes around under and in teaching. For example, the variables inside teaching profession is all about. Okay, so let's have the characteristic of a profession. So what do you mean by the characteristic of a profession? Di ba? Most likely, all of us, we choose and we were inspired not to be in a specific field. So you have to ask also yourself on what are the things that you love the most. So this would be the avenue for you to become more productive and more diligent enough in giving all the best things that you would like also to be in the profession that actually you have been with. No? So as teachers, di ba, you have to ask also, is this the profession that I would like also to be part with? No, honestly, there have been saying, or most likely, di ba, these are the common things that we hear mostly, that teaching happens to be not only a profession, but teaching happen to be also a vocation, because you have to devote lots of time, you have to exert lots of effort. So these are some of the characteristics also under, di ba, the profession, as we are talking about profession. The first one would be lengthy period of education and or training. Teachers should be trained, not just like what we have heard uh, in the previous discussion, that well, we have to train our teachers because they are the ones who molded also the generations of today. They are the ones who help the learners, their pupils, students, to acquire knowledge, not through their guidance. So this happens to be the characteristics of teachers and future teachers who would like also to help and extend the effort for them to be able to see their students learning. So the teaching profession involves all these variables in helping or in extending also the time for the students to learn. So the first one would be, again, let me just reiterate, lengthy period of education and or training. Na? Sabi ko nga po, 10 pages ahead of your students should not only be 10 pages, but if you can read voraciously most of the time, these are the characteristics that every teacher should imbibe. And then the second one would be deliver superior services. The question here, or the premise here, how does a teacher deliver superior services? Definitely, the first one, they should attend training. Second, there should be knowledge in terms of the lesson that they are actually teaching. No? So high level of public trust, once that you will be able to at least flourish, and then once that you'll be able to get the right mastery in terms of the subject matter, in terms of the rudiment of what it's like to be in the profession of education. So as teachers, it doesn't end only coming from the four corners of the room. Just like now, it's pandemic. Now we are now in the new normal. So most likely, to those who are actually listening and watching in this video, in this live video, definitely you have to ask yourself, not just like me, I've been teaching for the past or more than 20 years. Now, this is new to me, not because of the technology, but again, it would be also a challenge on our part to equip ourselves so that we will be able to extend our help, no, and even to share our knowledge through our students, no, or even for those who will be taking their licensure examinations for teachers. Definitely, you'll be, diba, you're going to be also a future teacher sooner or later. So the question here, granted that you are actually good in technology, but you have to equip also yourself in terms of the mastery, in terms of the content, and in terms also of the subject matter that you are actually teaching. Now, so this variables, or these two variables, definitely they should work hand in hand. No? Just like me, I am not really from or even under the Gen Z, but again, you have to equip yourselves definitely and understand also the things that these generations of today needed. So you have to at least, no, when you get that, at least you'll be able to formulate also public trust because of the knowledge, because of the skills, and because also of the things or experiences that you can share for them to grow and for them also to be a professional individual sooner or later. Now the fourth one would be specialized knowledge. Now, what do you mean by specialized knowledge? Definitely, when you are attending different seminars, when you're actually having paper presentations in terms of those different things, no, regarding research, no, sabi ko nga, it's not anymore you publish or you perish, but again, through research. I always mention this also with some of those students and some other graduate school students that I have handled also, that it's not the word perish, but definitely when you conduct research, you flourish, no? You publish and then at the same time you flourish because through research, we understand the needs of the society. Through research, we understand also the things or intervention that we can also not augment so that we'll be able to at least help the teaching and learning, and then the learning and teaching, oh, they should work one way or another. Not so the special knowledge through research, the special knowledge through trainings, the special knowledge through focus group discussion, getting also the ideas coming from the experts would help us to be an effective teacher, leading or gearing towards in building also the knowledge of our learners, no? And through that we'll be able also to at least have the authority, no? Authority in the fields where you are actually a part, not just like when you are in the education field or even in some fields. Definitely when you build the trust, no, since you have the specialized knowledge, you have all the confidence, and once that you have all the confidence, definitely you build authority. So that's the first space under the characteristics of a profession. No? So please bear in mind that, well, as teachers, we molded also the, or we help our students, diba, to be the best version of themselves. So as teachers, we have to equip also ourselves through trainings, through research, and through the knowledge that we get not only in the four corners of the room, not inside the classroom, but definitely you have to go out also in your comfort zone, and you have to go out also so that you'll be able to learn and share those practices, not through your students, through your teaching, and through the learnings and reactions, no, and feedbacks by your students or by your learners. So ito yung pinaka-tinatawag po natin, wag nating kakalimutan as we are talking about, diba, the first phase or the first part of, diba, teaching profession. So sana lahat po ay nakatutulong, sana po lahat nakikinig, and then as we progress later, we will be discussing also some of the ways on how we will be able to gauge and give students, no, with different needs, no, so that we'll be able also to respect their diversity, and that is really a part also of inclusivity, no. Now aside from the first phase, no, under also the second phase of a characteristic of the profession, definitely wag po natin kakalimutan that there should always be an autonomy, no. When we talk about autonomy, teachers, diba, it deals also with what, the academic freedom, no. And even if the institution, they have also their own vision and mission, so we have to abide that, no. But when we are in the classroom, for as long as we follow also the vision and mission of every academic institution, or for example if you're teaching both in the primary, secondary, or even junior high school, whether you are from the private or whether you are from the public, definitely we are abide, di ba, by the vision and mission of the Department of Education. But then again, we have the liberty and we have the academic freedom or ways and styles on how we are going to deliver and make our lesson an interesting one. So please do not forget that we are teachers, but what we know today may not be applicable probably by tomorrow or maybe in the future. So we have to be equipped. No, we have to be knowledgeable, and we have to think of the means and ways on how can we entice and encourage our students definitely to at least not have their attention so that they'll be able to participate well. Not most of the time. Sabi ko nga, this would be the bigger or even the biggest challenge on the part of every academic, every teacher and academic institution in this platform, in this new platform, online. How are we going? You have to ask yourself as teachers, no? And you have to at least, know what would be the possible strategies or methods that we have to use at least to be able to get the attention and to make our subject interesting. So the first one would be autonomy. Autonomy in a sense that we have the liberty, autonomy in a sense that we have actually the styles, not the strategy and methods to be able to augment and to be able to at least get all the attentions of our students. Now professional associations, as I speak about professional associations, please do not also forget that this is not only on the purpose of at least having good points when you are going to be re-ranked, or even if you're requesting for reclassification to get also a good position, whether in both private or public. No? But as I speak about professional associations, as teachers, diba, you have to know also where is your specialization, no? What field diba, do you belong? And at least you may join in some of the reputable professional associations that would help your skills, no, and even your profession to do well and to do more. Kasi sabi ko nga po, you build connections, and through connections you get new ideas, refreshing ideas, and aside from those, di ba, refreshing ideas, you learn different best practices, and you may apply it, no, once that you are actually teaching, or even you may share this in your institution, so that this would be a collaboration between the teacher, the institution, and their stakeholders together with their students. So please do not forget, diba, in managing and be part of some of the professional associations that would help not for you to become more professional in your fields, no? And high level of prestige, no? Now, once you have built the confidence, once you have built, let's say, the connection, and you become the authority in the fields where you belong, you create and you build also a high level of prestige. You are going to be the word of mouth, no? And at some point, as you progress, diba, to be invited as a speaker, to be invited, for example, as a resource person in terms of education, or even in some fields, you build a high level of prestige. You turn out to be, for example, the word of mouth, no? So as teachers, how are you supposed to make connections, and how are you going to help, no, yourself to be more professional? Definitely after for example, passing or after getting the license for you to be able to be a professional teacher, you don't stop dreaming. No? You get your master's. No? In some of the reputable institution in the Philippines, it depends on you. And then if you are not yet contented, no, definitely I encourage also you guys to at least take your PhD or even postgraduate. In this sense, definitely you'll be able to acquire knowledge, and please do not, no, I hope that all teachers and students who are listening today, that this is not just only for the purpose also of getting the right rank or even to have a higher salary, but I hope that when you are taking your master's or graduate school or even postgraduate, you should learn, na? And I hope that this is not only on the purpose of re-ranking. So the purpose of getting your graduate school, or the purpose of getting your postgraduate, definitely, I hope that your intention is all of us should learn, and all of us should get something out of the things, no, that we are actually being a part with, no. So you put and you create a high level of prestige. Now, once you have been, no, let's say, a resource speaker, no, for example, a lecturer, or even a resource person in a specific research area, no, na tinatawag po natin of concern. And then the last one would be higher than average financial rewards. Again, oo naman po, no? Once that you have finished all of this, now you will be taking the ROI. Now, what do I mean by ROI? Definitely, it's the return of investment. Just like what I have been mentioning, let us not stop only in the four corners of the room. And I hope no teacher will die. I'm not saying bad. I hope please do not take it negatively, but I hope that we should not only have the item of what it's like to be a teacher one. No, but then again, please don't get me wrong. No, I am encouraging everyone to progress. Not the question is how are you going to progress? It is through education, because through education and expanding, di ba, your education would help us also to soar high and expand also our horizons. Not through learning, through graduate school, and through attending different professional fora, no, that would help us also to build connections. So please do not forget that, and that would be the part also of the first and second phase of the teaching profession that we have now at this point in time. Doon sa mga nakikinig, I hope, di ba, that it would help you, no? And please take note, those who are listening and who will be taking their licensure examinations for teachers this coming March, the one that I am discussing are some of the, I'm not saying all, not that it's going to, ano po ha, be part of the examination, but again, as I have been, no, in the review industry for a very long period of time, sabi ko nga po, umiikot-ikot lang naman yan, and all you have to do is to list down and try to figure it out and understand and listen carefully, because it would help you also. Now, group work would help. No? What do I mean by group work? No? In the field of education, focus group discussion would be the best example. In the field of education or in the field of learning, fora, no? And research fora, research parliament. Why? It's because these are the things that would help all teachers to prepare themselves, diba? Not only submitting the, diba? The research for the purpose also of complying, or on the purpose only on complying, but definitely you are submitting research for you to be able to at least have your own fair share, no? And to be implemented in your own academic institution. So with all of these things that is going on today, since we are now in the new normal, most of the problems that most of our students or learners encounter, definitely, specifically also in the public institution, would be poor internet connections, no? And even some of the anxieties and mental health, di ba? Problems. These are some of the variables that goes on. So in this scenario, or with some of the variables that I have mentioned, you have to figure out now what kind of intervention program do I need to prepare, and what kind of intervention program should I implement. So this would all happen if there are some communication or constant communication that is going on, no? On the part of the administrators, teachers, learners, and their stakeholders, no? Now, I would like you guys to think about this reflection. Diba? Ask yourself also, do you think each of the certification produces equally qualified teachers? No? I will leave these questions, diba, on your part, pero sabi ko nga po, teachers should be equipped, as uh, as as I mentioned, we have to expand our horizon. So the question, how can we expand our horizon? Definitely, it is through education. It is through training. So at least also, di ba? I'm not going to mention the name, but I think, di ba, we still have this, di ba, this ample idea that sabi ko nga, education turns out to be essential, di ba? This would be the foundation. So I hope that, no, I don't want to be red tag, but again, this would be a calling that I hope that the government should invest more on the trainings as far as what, no, teachers, di ba? happens to be the person or even the key person in building the nation. So, in infusing knowledge, how can they infuse knowledge if most of their ideas are all passe? Definitely, they have to invest, not when it comes to trainings, when it comes to seminars. But the problem here would be the funding. So I hope uh, the institution, and I hope the government would also entice or even give them the right funds na for them to be able to learn and for them to be able to share. So ito yon. No? This would be the first one. It talks about the teacher certification. No? Now, 3 years when you get your license, prior on the expiration of your license, definitely we have to attend the CPD, the continuing, di ba, professional, di ba, the CPD na tinatawag po natin development, na these are the things, no, that would help also the teachers to at least get, no, proper and bright ideas at this point in time. So they should be certified, and they should get also certification, no, to enhance their capability. Now, what's the role of religion in education? Na? Sabi nga, what role did religion play in education during the colonial period? And what role do you think religion should play in education, di ba, in this present, di ba, at this point in time or in this new normal? Now, definitely religion and education, sabi ko nga po, it goes hand in hand. And there are, di ba, different influences. Please don't forget, di ba, as I speak about influences, religion and education, they help one another. It helps the students to be moral, not despite of some of the negative things, not that goes on, di ba, at this point in time. So we help our students to be decisive, but at some point they should not forget, di ba, that all actions should be moral in a sense and should be based, di ba, on the kind, di ba, on the kind of religion that they have. No, respect should always prevail, diversity should always prevail, inclusivity should always prevail. Later on I will discuss also how are we going to infuse inclusivity and how are we going to infuse diversity towards learning, towards teaching, and towards learning and teaching also. So these are the important things that we should not forget, no? And this boils down under the category on the development of, di ba, foundation as far as historical of education happens to be concerned. No? It all started from 1600 up to 1865. So ito yon, the religion and education. No? The important role of religion is to help our students to be decisive and to be moral in all the actions that they are actually doing when they are what in not only in the school, but how are they supposed, di ba, to make use, or even the question here, how are they going to apply all of these foundations and learnings, na? Okay, so there are questions also that goes on, or di ba, there are questions which arise, not just like, for example, what are the influences of the following European thinkers on American education? Now, please do not forget, again, during the Spanish regime, not in the Philippines, we adopted, or we were able to learn their customs, but the best thing that they have actually shared with us would be more on the religion side. But again, please do not forget, under the American education, they were the ones who actually helped us to be more educated. They allowed not only the men but also the women to have their own school, no, for schooling, to learn and be part of the community or to be part of the society. But please do not forget, it's not only education, but nevertheless, di ba, we were able to adopt also the kind of government that they have, no, and even up to now, the system, no. But we just rephrase because again, it depends on the culture. Now we adopted, but nevertheless, there are some prohibitions, not in the constitution that we have in the Philippines. Now we just paraphrase, not because we have to change because their culture happens to be different from our culture. But these are some of the theories and great philosopher who helped us not and make use of some of their theories and foundations or philosophy for us to be an effective educator even up to now. So the first one would be Comenius. Later, I'll discuss also their contributions. Locke, Rousseau, Pestalozzi, Herbart, Froebel. No? These are the six philosophers who share their ideas as far as philosophy in education happens to be concerned. Okay, let's start with Comenius. Okay, he was actually responsible in explaining the idea of organizing learning into sequential grade schools. No, that is why we have the primary. No, aside from primary nowadays, since we belong from the K to 12 curriculum, definitely we have the kinder before. It is not really being imposed. No, I actually to enroll our children in the kindergarten. But nowadays, di ba, this is now a part of our curriculum. So also the pupils or the children of today, their parents should at least enroll their children uh, at the beginning, the kinder, going to primary, secondary, and then senior high school prior to tertiary. So the idea of organizing learning into sequential grade schools. No? So in this area, Comenius happens to be the proponent. No? So kung bakit nga tayo, we have all the stages, definitely because we have to identify the learning process, and also it involves the learning stages of the learner or the children, or the pupil or the student. So the first one would be Comenius. Please, I hope to those who are listening, please do not forget if you have ball pen and bond paper with you. I hope that you are actually listening. Or after this event, diba, we have recorded. Actually, we'll be recording this one. So I hope that you'll be able to go back. And if you have questions, all you have to do is to watch, and all you have to do is to listen and be part of this milestone one. So Comenius would be the first one, no? And then the second one, he actually explained also the views in terms of education as preparation for life. Now, as students, as teachers, sabi ko nga, you have to ask yourself also, why are you studying? What's the purpose of educating yourself? The purpose of educating yourself is different from my personal view. Ako lagi ko sinasabi, I cannot teach what I do not know, and I cannot teach what I do not have, or even I cannot share what I do not have as well. So as teachers, definitely you have to be 20 pages, or you have to be a voracious reader so that your students will be inspired also to learn the same way. So Comenius would be the first one. The second one would be Locke, or John Locke, no? And he was actually responsible in explaining that human mind at birth is a blank slate, no? And please take note of this. Ito lang lagi pinapalabas lagi o ipinapakita din sa board exams, no? When you hear or when you read, for example, the term tabula rasa, John Locke would be the responsible, di ba, in explaining what is tabula rasa is all about. No? Para sa akin, di ba, lagi ko lang sinasabi, if you are innocent, if you don't have any malice at all, or if you have no idea in a specific, for example, topic, no, and especially, no, for example, as a beginner, definitely you don't know anything yet, no. The reason why you are actually studying, definitely you want to learn. But the first thing here, where does learning starts? Now that's the question. Definitely, it's in the respective home, no? Or in your home, or maybe the learning starts within your family. Second would be the learning start within your community. The learning start also as part of the community would be the academic institution, and it goes with what the stage, di ba, process. No, there are stages or there are processes that we have also to follow. So at first we don't know anything. As we progress, no, by the time that we learn, by the time that we finish our schooling, definitely we can say that we are actually at least not a person who happens to be educated through education. So that's the first example that John Locke discussed, not all about. Now, the second one would be knowledge is gained through experience. Kaya nga sinasabi ko, experience will always be a teacher, di ba? Or experience is the best teacher na tinatawag na po natin. Siyempre, at first, you commit errors. Even up to now, sabi ko nga po, definitely in my field, I know my fields, but well, at some point, sometimes, di ba, there are some things that you have to improve, no? And you take it as what, no? positive, not criticism, and you take it also as what a constructive criticism, not because a person who do not accept definitely advices or even suggestions, how can you grow, no? How can you progress, and how can you be more professional? So knowledge is gained through experience, no? So as future teachers, for now maybe you have the knowledge. I hope that you listen, because listening coming from the veterans and listening coming from your mentors would help you to be a better teacher and a better person and an effective educator also sooner and later. So it goes with the explanation of John Locke. Again, wag niyo kakalimutan, John Locke, as I speak about John Locke, wag niyo kakalimutan lang tabula rasa. Okay? So the third one would be Rousseau, no? And he was also responsible in explaining also that school should protect children from society and let children grow naturally. Authentic, no? Authentic. Uh, ako, laging sinasabi lang dito, it talks about the authenticity of the learning style or even the learning of the students not involved. No? So what do I mean by authenticity? No? You allow the children or you allow the learner to discover things for himself. No? You allow the student or the learner also to at least gain knowledge through personal experiences. It goes with what stages. It goes also with what not you are allowing not that the society would help also their children to grow naturally without fear, without inhibition, and I hope no it does happen without bullying and discrimination at this point in time. Na? And then another, it explains also that through education, diba, it encourages children to think, see, and feel. No? You allow them diba, to experience what it's like to be, let's say, bitten by an ant, not so that he or she will be able to explain the experience. Na it goes with the experience also. So ito yon. Ito yung ipinaliliwanag ni Rousseau. Na? Okay, another would be Pestalozzi, wherein di ba, it suggested that education could be an agent to improve society. No? A society with uh, few people who are educated, honestly, it will not progress at all, no? Or the society will not progress at all. Definitely, we help our students to be more educated, but I hope we extend our help also in explaining thoroughly what is right and what is wrong. But again, di ba, once the learner turns out to learn more, he turns out to ako lagi ko nga turns out to voice his sentiments, turns out also to voice his own explanation, di ba, in a specific matter. Definitely, sabi ko nga, ako I'm teaching Filipino also, di ba, in my specific field. Sabi ko nga, pwede tayong magtalo subalit hindi tayo magkakaaway. Arguing is different from at least debating, because when we talk about debating, you have your ideas, but when you say and when you share your ideas, there are bases, no? And I have my own ideas, no? Definitely, I hope, di ba, as far as I'm listening, di ba, I hope that you are going to listen by the time that I am through the way I explain things, no? So, sabi ko nga, pwede tayo mag-away, pero hindi tayo, o pwede tayo magtalo, subalit hindi tayo magkakaaway. So, di ba, it suggests that through education, di ba, it would help to be an agent in improving, di ba, our society. No? Even up to now, it does happen. Okay, second would be introduce the idea that teachers should be provided with special kinds of training. This would be the di ba? If going back, di ba, from the first page that I actually mentioned a while ago, it is through training. It is through extensive training. It is through extending or an expansion of, di ba? Expanding your horizon through education would lead for us to be able to produce an effective teacher with all of these variables. Na? So please do not forget that one of the proponents would be Pestalozzi. Na? Okay, now Herbart, he actually introduced the idea of preparing systematic formal lessons plan similar to present day's lesson planning formats. Now, lesson planning nowadays, di ba, if you have observed, especially those who are actually teaching in the public school As a senior high school naman, whether you are not yet a board passer, you will be given 5 years, or even in the private institution, it would be a mortal sin for every teacher to at least not to submit their lesson plan. But nowadays, in the public setting, we are actually submitting our IDLAR, we are submitting our DLL. Nowadays, it's computerized, no? But there are so many. There are actually so many things to do, no? In the public school, I should know because I'm still teaching. But nowadays, I'm a part of the public school institution, so there are so many work. I'm not complaining, but I hope that all parents and the teachers and students would realize that even if it's new normal, actually it would be more difficult nowadays because there are also so many tasks, no, that we have to comply, and delinquent students that we have to attend, and even another intervention programs that we have to extend so that we'll be able to get also what is for the students. Now, again, our primary concern would be the students. So, again, sabi ko nga, planning formats, no? DLL nowadays, and the lesson plan. Pero pakitandaan nyo lang, John Herbart lesson plan, no? Or lesson planning para mas madali maintindihan. Para pag nakita nyo yung examination, if it talks about lesson planning, o wala nang patumpik-tumpik, John Herbart po iyon. Okay. Now, Froebel, okay, known as the father of kindergarten. Yun lang, mas madali maintindihan. Froebel, he was actually the one, or he happens to be the father of kindergarten so much. Na? And then he coined and stressed the importance of educating young learners. No? Ako lagi may filosofiya doon sa mga nakikinig po sa hapong ito that all children may be angels, but sometimes their acts, gestures do not fall under the category cute or good. Your style, your methods happens to be different when you're teaching the primary because that's foundation. I salute, I'm not saying that I am not giving the right due, no, for those teachers who are teaching in the secondary and even in the senior high school or even in the tertiary. But again, to be a teacher in the primary area or in the primary category, no, definitely it's going to be it's going to be difficult because why? No? This would be a foundation. It can make or break also the learning processes of every students that you are actually, or pupils, learners that you'll be handling. No? So, paki-stress out. No? Ito lang yung sinasabi natin. When you hear the word Froebel, definitely he happens to be the father of kindergarten. Okay. Now, the next one would be Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. And he was the one, or he happens to be responsible in giving, diba, or to give American education a practical orientation, diba? So Benjamin Franklin would be. And in 1741, Benjamin Franklin na established the Franklin Academy. Na? It is it was a non-sectarian institution which offered such practical subjects as mathematics, astronomy, navigation, and bookkeeping. No? So ito yun. That's the first academy, but nowadays, para mas madali maintindihan, para if you're going to compare it, it's just like an institution, a small institution, which help, no, our students to at least uh, learn on how to read, learn on how to write, and at least to count. No? So these are the things that Benjamin Franklin happens to be responsible. No? But again, American orientation or American education orientation would be the key word. No? As you hear, for example, the word or last name of Benjamin Franklin. No? American education, diba? Orientation. Okay. Now, what are the educational experiences of different groups? No? I hope, diba, the educations of slaves before going back even in our even in the Philippine settings, not during the Spanish regime, we were forced, diba, to be part of their culture, but there are some privileges that we did not really experience, not during that time. And even in the American setting, not or even as far as its educational experiences, not of different groups, not there have been negative, not experiences that they have what not experienced, not over the years or over the time. It talks about also the educations of the slaves, education of Native Americans, education in Spain's no American colonies, education for women, education for people with disabilities. Not so again, this six variables. Now, there is only one keyword that they have experienced, no? And that is also discrimination. Now, they have experienced discrimination. But nowadays, now all academic institutions and governed by the Department of Education, at least we are protecting also all the interest, no? And even the diversity of our learner and even the inclusivity of our learner through through in extending the potential, no, in augmenting help, no, and to avoid, let's say, discrimination in the education setting. So, itong mga valuables na ito, way back, no, over the years, and even during their time, they have experienced, diba, discrimination. The question here, what kind of discrimination, no? Or for example, diba, during the Native Americans and even slaves are not they could not even afford to attend class, no? Because diba, for the word itself, diba, they are what, slaves, no? They are not allowed to be educated for the purpose, no, or even for the word slaves, no? Although there are some Native Americans way back, diba, if you have heard of the apartheid policy, no, this is actually, if you have heard also of uh, who is this, diba, who mentioned that someday the son of the white man and son of the black man will walk along the rocky beach of Colorado, diba? If I may quote Martin Luther King, he fought for the diba, welfares of diba, his fellow black Americans. Now, but when you go to America nowadays, diba, they do not, as far as diba, as far as they are actually concerned, and as much as possible, much better that you just call them Americans. There's no such thing as white and black Americans, because once that you have mentioned that, there's already an inclination or a formulation of discrimination. So much better that nowadays they use the term Americans, not Native Americans, not American colonies. There we are underprivileged also to be educated. No, uh, the best example would be during the Spanish regime in our country. Rizal went and visited diba, different countries to learn Spanish. No? But here, Spanish, diba, we are not obliged, no? And we were not allowed to learn their languages for the reason that they are afraid, or the Spanish government way back. Nas, I'm speaking only the time of Dr. Jose Rizal, way back. They are afraid of learning their language because maybe the Filipinos might revolt against them. No? Now, under the American regime or under the American government, definitely we were privileged enough diba, to at least learn and to be educated, because they were the ones who put up, honestly, the first institution to help, no, or to help also our learners or the Filipinos to be educated. Second, the contribution also of the American government in terms of education, women were allowed also to be educated. Now, the best example would be Dr. Paz Benitez, one of the pioneer or the first one to finish her course at the University of the Philippines, and later on, she taught also at the University of the Philippines, and she was able to produce good writers and national artists in terms of what writings, no, and literature that we have. Now, so what do you mean by that? We were influenced. What do I mean by that? Well, we experience, no, uh, at some point discrimination. But the question nowadays, how are we going to avoid this, no? And how are we going to eradicate this, no? And inclusive education also boils down in helping our, sabi ko nga po, PWDs, no? Or person with disabilities, no? But again, person with abilities. They are not disabled, but they can able, or they are able, not to be part of the education industry or institution. So I hope not this would help us also. Okay, as far as the teaching profession, diba, you have to know and you have to identify also, diba? Ask yourself, you, no, should be the teacher and as a person in the society. No? Sabi ko nga po, it does not only end in the four corners of the room. As we go out, we are still teachers. No? So we have to behave. No? We have to be we have to be a good example towards our students, and we have to be professional in everything that we do, in all the things that we perform. And by the time that our students turns out to be a professional, well, di ba, it would be a big impact on our part because we were able to produce good learners and products and students. Now, ask yourself also, the teacher in the classroom and community, what is your role as a teacher in the classroom and as a teacher, di ba, in the community? So, these are the questions that I would like you guys to think further. Na, iiwan ko na po yan sa inyo. Okay, the third one would be on becoming a global teacher. Not just like what I have mentioned, being a global teacher definitely requires us to know the needs of our students. No? Sabi ko nga po, maybe the examples that I am using would be different from the past, di ba? That I have used. No? Why? It's because the needs for today may be different for the needs most probably in the future. So the examples that actually you are using maybe turns, di ba, it may turn out to be passe. So definitely, I hope as teachers we have to be creative, no? Uh, ang edad kasi, I always believe that, well, it's not about the age, but definitely it's your ability, and it's also your obligation at least to watch. Di ba? There are so many resources, YouTube. Di ba? You don't imitate, but all you have to do is to get ideas, and then you create your own style so that you'll be able to at least infuse this when you are actually having or conducting your class. Not so you have to be creative, and that makes sense. Not now, technology will always be a part nowadays of the teaching profession. But again, you have to ask yourself, tinatanong ko nga din po yung sarili ko po doon sa mga nakikinig ano ba talaga ang mahalaga? Yung content o yung kakayahan halimbawa at kaalaman sa teknolohiya, di ba? Or sa technology. Nowadays, di ba, it should be both, no? Now, millennials, Gen Zs, and the younger generations of teachers of today, definitely you are good when it comes to technology, but all you have to do is to improve your ability when it comes to content. It's the other way around. Ako naman, I'm very honest. Maybe when it comes to content, I have that already, but when it comes to technology, I have this little sort of ideas, no? Because I am not digital natives, no? I am just a part of those digital immigrants. No? Now, these are maybe the challenges that I should actually improve so that I'll be able to be part of, di ba, the society and then the teaching force, di ba, at this point in time. So you have to be a global teacher. And being global teacher, you have to be knowledgeable in infusing your teaching and learning and teaching on the use of technology also. Okay, so the professionalization teaching, babalik tayo, sabi ko nga, seminars, trainings, na fora. So this would be, di ba, the help, no? Research, no? Okay, I hope whether in the public or in the private, they will encourage their teachers to attend or even to present papers because it would help a lot. Not only on the purpose of presentation, but I hope that there would be implementation. Kaya nga po, not only on the purpose of getting the funds, but I hope and getting a good, di ba, position, but I hope on the purpose of implementation. So, no, becoming, di ba, it would help us to become a professional teacher. Okay. Okay, let me just stress out also this, di ba, the depth and vision. Alam naman na po yan, but again, for those, especially those who will be taking the examinations, we have to abide and be part of the depth ed vision and mission. If I may just read, no, we dream of Filipinos who passionately love their country and whose competencies and values enable them to realize their full potential and contribute meaningfully to building the nation. Okay? And depth ed vision, as a learner-centered institution, the Department of Education continuously improves itself to better serve its stakeholders, just like what I have mentioned. Depth admission, please do not forget to future teachers to protect and promote the right of every Filipino to quality, equitable, culture-based, and complete basic education where, okay, the students should learn in a child-friendly, gender-sensitive, safe, and motivating environment. So I hope that the student should not be intimidated. No? I hope that the student should not be bullied, no, by the teachers, by their colleagues, or by the students around them. So sabi ko nga, what if, no? What if a specific learner or a student, di ba, experience bullying, no? Positive discipline should be implemented nowadays, no? Positive discipline. Siguro naman you have heard of that, but then again, even if we have heard of that, the question here, how can we implement that? No? As teachers, no? As leader and even the manager of the classroom, no? Teachers should facilitate learning and constantly nurture every learner, no? With the right guidance, not with uh, the motherly affection, not because we are the second parents of every learner that we are actually handling. No? Now, the third one would be administrator and staff. No? As stewards of the institution, ensure an enabling and supportive environment for effective learning to happen. Okay, now the role of family, the role of community, and other stakeholder are actively engaged and share responsibility for developing lifelong learners. Nowadays, this is very actually realistic, not even before, but then again, this is more realistic at this point in time because even the parents are challenged to guide their students, no, or their children, rather their children, to learn, no, and to answer their modules and be guided if ever that there are some questions or vague, no, uh, questions, di ba, inside the materials. All you have to do is to ask your parents, no, it's the other way around. All you have to do is to PM your teacher because we are now using different platforms. And one of the best examples of platforms, di ba, that we are using aside from the internet or even social media would be the messenger. No? Nowadays, di ba? Sabi ko nga po, hanggang madaling araw, we are extending our help. Hindi po madaling maging guro at this point in time. It's because, sabi nga nung iba, I hope yung ibang mga magulang would realize, sabi ng ibang magulang, sa amin nyo na lang ibigay yung sahod dahil kami naman na nagtuturo. Sabi ko po, mga magulang, and even doon sa mga nakikinig po ngayon, I hope that you'll be able to explain this and you're going to be future teachers sooner or later that to be part of this new normal on the part of the teachers. No, honestly, it's very difficult. No, poor internet connections, di ba? Delivery of module, creation of modules. Please, no, spare us. No, please, di ba, understand us because not all teachers are born to be a writer. No, they are not born to be a module writer, but we were forced also at some point to create our own self learning modules. No, why? It's because we would like to extend honestly the learning processes and we would like also to at least help, no, and augment new ideas towards our students. So this is not only the responsibility of the academic institution and the teachers, but definitely there should be a hand-in-hand relationship between the parents and the community and some other stakeholders. No? So again, please bear with us. No? The core values of DepEd, okay, meron tayong makajos, di ba? Sabi ko nga po, dapat sa lahat ng ginagawa natin, di ba? Huwag natin kakalimutan na magpasalamat, di ba? Ang isa sa dapat natin pinagpapasalamat ay, sabi ko nga, tayo po ay buhay, no? Na tinatawag po natin. Okay, makajos, makatao. Okay? You have to be compassionate, no? At this point in time, you have to be understandable and think of the best ways, not in helping our students. Yes, there are some students, ang tawag ko nga po ay ghost students, yung tatanungin ka kung anong kulang pero wala namang ipinasa. But then again, just like what I've mentioned, positive discipline should be implemented. So sabi ko, it's on the part of the teacher. Na? Makakalikasan, we have to infuse, di ba, the love for nature and love for the environment. Na? Okay, at makabansa. Di ba? Yung nationhood, no? And the sense of nationalism na tinatawag po natin. Even up to now, sabi ko nga po, we have to infuse that, no? Please do not allow, di ba, our students not to realize their identities on what it's like to be a Filipino. So this would be the question. How are you going to ask them and how are you going to apply, di ba, this core values in all the subjects, no, that actually you are, di ba, teaching or in a specific subject that you're actually teaching. No? So these are the core values. Now, ito yung ilan doon sa mga Republic Act that would help, no, the learner and even the teacher to protect or to have at least an idea, di ba, that maybe, di ba, they should do or they should not do. So ito po yung ilan dun sa mga Republic Act involving the teaching profession. Okay, Republic Act number 4670, Magna Carta of Public School Teachers. No, Magna Carta or Magna Carta for Public School Teachers. No, yung Republic Act number 4670, Magna Carta, di ba, for public school teachers. Huwag niyo kakalimutan, 4670, Republic Act, Magna Carta for public school teachers. No? Okay. What's inside the Republic Act number 4670, Magna Carta for public school teachers? The act is very important for the teachers in the public schools. No? What's the purpose? Because it protects the rights like their tenure of office, academic freedom, and other benefits for their well-being. Now, second would be there's a section in this act that mandates the head of office to inform the teachers of this code. But sometimes, or maybe I hope it's not unintentional. Maybe I hope that it's not intentional. Well, maybe diba, it's unintentional. Diba, there are some cases that, well, teachers are not aware when it comes to their rights. Now, some teachers are not aware on the provision of this code, as this is not discussed with them. No? Whenever a question arises as to the legality of any action by the teacher, he or she has to find a copy of this code. So it is the responsibility also of the teacher or the respective teacher to ask, for example, for this copy. Yeah? Let's say, for example, what's the coverage of this Republic Act? Na? Ito po, if I may just share. Now, again, I'm not going to disclose, but these are just event. These are just, for example, an event occurred or happened. There was a teacher who requested for a study leave for 1 year. Since she did not know, or maybe she was not really aware, not that she happens to be entitled for the study leave with pay, she applied for a study leave without pay. The principal told her that her application might not be approved as this is no longer allowed. No? She was advised to personally talk to the superintendent and discuss her request with her. Her papers did not have the endorsement of the principal. What do you mean by did not receive any endorsement? It was not actually, or she did not receive the signature, no? O yung tinatawag, it was not being signed by the principal. So when she talked to the superintendent told her to go back to her principal and have her papers signed by the principal first before the superintendent signed it. Because oo naman, ang tawag nga natin, you don't bypass, di ba? It starts coming from the school heads, di ba, in your school, and then you go to the division office and so on. Paano na magpipirmahan yun ng mas nakatataas if it's not, di ba, being signed as well? Okay, when she talked to the superintendent, yan, di ba? When the papers were finally signed by the two school officials, she went to the regional office for processing. No? To her surprise, she was told that she's eligible for a study leave with pay as she has already served more than 7 years. No? The clerk gave her a copy of the Magna Carta. Isn't it, sabi ko nga, the question here or the premise here, isn't it deplorable that the information must come from a mere processing clerk, not than from the two school officials? No? Aren't they supposed to be the source of information? Is this not a cause of withholding information for some ulterior motives? I hope, di ba? I hope that it happens to be unintentional. No, what do I mean by Magna Carta for teachers? No, teachers should be educated. Now, going back, coming from the first phase of my discussion, sabi ko nga, it's not wrong that all teachers or even administrators of every academic institution should at least attend trainings, no? Faculty development, or even trainings in terms of the legality. I'm not going to discuss further because I'm not really a lawyer, but then again, Magna Carta, it deals with the rights of every public school teachers. So please take note of that. Na? So Magna Carta for public school teachers, ulitin lang natin, paano pa ito nagsimula, na Magna Carta for public school teachers serves as the guide to utter protection and freedom away from threats and terminations from the concerned authorities. Now, if you're not aware of the law, you're always threatened by the administrators or any person in authority to terminate you from work once you have violated the law. No? So, again, di ba, yung tinatawag nga po nating teachers should be knowledgeable. All of us should be knowledgeable. Ako, sabi ko nga, if I may quote the words coming from, di ba, Corina Sanchez Rojas, sabi nga, always treat, no, dictionary or the Constitution as your day-to-day dictionary so that, di ba, you know your rights. No? Now, rephrasing the statements not being mentioned by Corina Sanchez, sabi ko nga, as public school teachers, di ba, we have DepEd orders. As public school teachers, we have the Magna Carta for teachers. No? So we should know that. But then again, lagi kong sinasabi, others are based on the guidelines. There's nothing wrong to base not more on the guidelines that we have in the Department of Education. But then again, sabi ko nga, you should not be bureaucratic. Sooner or later, you will learn what's actually the literal and the figurative meaning of what is like to be bureaucratic. Now, for the information of everybody, the Magna Carta has significantly defined, along with its history, in the English realms. It is also known as Magna Carta Libertatum, an English, di ba, 1215 charter which limited the power of English monarch, specifically King John, from absolute rule. So we rephrased and we borrowed the term Magna Carta. No, it was actually being used not today. Okay, now the next one would be Magna Carta was the result of disagreements between the Pope and King John and his barons over the rights of the king. No? Magna Carta required the king to renounce. No? Magna Carta keywords is to renounce. No? Certain rights and respect certain legal procedures and to accept that the will of the king could be bound by law. Magna Carta is widely considered to be the first step in a long historical process leading to the rule of constitutional law. All of them are patterned no, after the present Magna Carta law for teachers. Now, if you can still remember before, di ba, before teachers, di ba, you are allowed to take your board exams, di ba? And to at least attend, di ba, review center for you to be guided, na? But before, di ba, even if you did not pass the board exams, di ba, for teachers, there are teachers way back, no, way back, no, who are not board passers, but since they have served 10 years, no, since they have served 10 years in the public school, they were considered to be a regular, di ba, employee, and they were able to receive an item. And the other term, di ba, for Magna Carta for teachers, na, in protecting or in allowing them to get their license because of the 10-year experience, even if they did not pass the board exams, di ba? Please take note of this. If you are all listening, di ba, we call it as grandfather's law, no? The grandfather's law. But now we call it as what? Magna Carta for public school teachers, no? Okay, another presidential decree 10006, no? Okay. What's inside the presidential decree of 10006, not 10006? Definitely or it helps in providing for the professionalization of teachers, regulating their practice in the Philippines and for other purposes. So please take note of this. Now, second one would be Republic Act number 7836, Philippine Teachers Professionalization Act of 1994. Now, Republic Act number 9293, it was actually being amended, or it was amended, no? April 21 in 2004. Okay. An act amending certain sections of Republic Act number 7836, no, RA number 7836, otherwise known as the Philippine Teachers Professionalization Act of 1994. Okay? So I hope, di ba, it does help, di ba? It does help, and I hope please take note of this because these are all the variables that goes, di ba, out now when you take the board exams. Now, these are some of the common questions that goes around in the licensure examinations for teachers. Okay, now, Code of Ethics of Professional Teachers. Please do not forget Family Code of the Philippines and the Family Code Revised, na tinatawag natin, or the Revised Family Code. Republic Act number 7610. Okay, what's actually inside the Republic Act number 7610. This happens to be an act providing for stronger deterrence and special protection against child abuse, no? Exploitation and discrimination, and for other purposes. Sabi ko nga, even up to now we learn, sabi ko nga, even up to now we help and we augment and we calibrate, no, the curriculum. And how do we calibrate the curriculum? Definitely we have to create a policy that would protect the interests of everyone, despite of their race, no, with regard not only in their race, their beliefs, and then their religion. No, we have to perform inclusivity and diversity on this. Not Republic Act number 7610. Okay. Now, Republic Act number 7877, this happens to be an act declaring sexual harassment unlawful in the employment, education, or training environment and for other purposes. So please take note of this. Na, teachers should always be decent. Na, and teachers, future teachers, should always protect the interests. Na, you should not degrade the interests of our learners and the institution where we belong. Okay, Republic Act number 8980, an act promulgating a comprehensive policy and a national system for early childhood care and development, or ECCD. Please take note of this, providing funds therefore and for other purposes. It falls under the Republic Act number 8980. Babalik tayo, our foundation would be the younger generation. So we have to create, no, or even to be more creative in protecting their welfare and rights. Now, under Republic Act number 8980. First call for children. What do you mean by that? Diba? Convention on the Rights of Children. Okay, it falls. No? So this happens to be the primary concern. Diba? The primary concern, not only by the teacher, the primary concern by the institution is to help our students honestly to learn and to feel that they're secured and to feel that they are safe in all places, specifically the academic institution where they belong. Okay, now I'm very much interested, diba, in actually helping, for example, in changing also, no? In changing the landscape of the learning process. No? Now, through changing the learning process, or in changing the learning process, we have to change also the learning outcomes. No? Now, here, no, as far as I'm concerned, sabi ko nga, how do we help, diba, to see the potential of our learner, or how do we help, diba, or extend our help in providing a fair, no, an equity in all the students that we are actually handling. So learning outcomes, no, should be provided also. So how do we define learning outcomes? Definitely, learning outcomes stated in the curriculum guide provided by DepEd become formalities, no, that have to be formulated as an essential part of the curriculum. No, and not just used to determine the methodology, assessment, and grading. Sabi ko nga po, at some point we should not be bureaucratic. Now, what do you mean by that? No? It's a case-to-case basis. No? For example, no? You don't give failing grades. All you have to do is to figure out what's the reason why the student or the learner do not submit their requirements. Now, if we can extend our help, no, for them to be able to cope up, definitely that's the role of every institution and academic institution. Okay, so methodology, assessment, and grading. Okay, you have to align it also, di ba? Doon sa tinatawag nating learning outcomes. No? Now, as I speak about learning outcomes, there should be a clarity of focus. No? What are the target areas? No? What are the gray areas of concern that should be improved, no, by the teacher? No? Di ba kaya nga meron tayong pre-test and post-test so that we'll be able to figure out what are the strengths and the weaknesses of our students as far as what the subject now happens to be concerned. Now, how do we create, how do we assess the learning outcomes of our students? Definitely, it goes coming from the activity, coming from the output, coming from the grading, and coming from the assessment task provided by the teacher. Now, but the first thing that we have to understand would be it should be linked to the learning outcomes. Now, what do you mean by it should be linked to the learning outcomes? Definitely, activities are just activities unless there is a direct link between the activity and the intended learning that what turns a task into a target. Sabi ko nga po, authentic assessment nowadays in my teaching, for example, I always, di ba, or I allow my students to infuse the things that they see in their environment. Now, that is what authentic assessment. Now, the power of technology. Sabi ko nga, as teachers, you have to be creative. Ako, I allow my students to use GC. I allow my students to use TikTok. But definitely, you have to explain that there are ethical considerations na on the purpose of protecting also their identity, no? Under the ba tinatawag nating Data Privacy Act. No? So, you have to know, you have to link also the learning outcomes. Now, second, all assessment tasks must be aligned to the learning outcomes. Students are likely to learn because instruction and assessment are focused and because students are assessed on what they are taught, no, na tinatawag po natin. So, it is through the facilitation, di ba, of, for example, instruction. No? Instruction should be clear, no? And teachers should be knowledgeable in the proper dissemination of ideas, no, towards guidance, no, and guided curriculum and instruction. So these are some of the things that we have to learn, and the things that we have to improve, and the things that we have to figure out as far as learning outcomes happens to be concerned. Now, third, therefore, grades should be based on how many much of the learning outcomes had been achieved and what standard should be, di ba, used na tinatawag natin. Okay. Now, please do not forget also that there are different, or there are types of learners, no? And learners, they have different types also of intelligence. Not only nowadays, it's not only academics, no, but there are different intelligence. Kaya nga meron tayo mga different strands, no? But I hope we do not discriminate na pag sinabing mahina ka, you go to tech voc. No, honestly, it's poor to hear, and it's so sad to hear that these are some of the mentalities, no, of others, that when you're not good in terms of academics, definitely you go to tech voc. Again, skills are being developed. And how can we develop skills? Yeah, definitely, you have to think also. No? Maybe they are not really totally good in when it comes to academic, but they're not stupid. No? Now, what do I mean by that? Definitely, all you have to do as teachers, diba, you have to hone also their potentials. You have to give them the right praise for them to be to develop their self-esteem. Now, as far as multiple intelligence, no, there is also what you call learner-centered (LC) and outcomes-based education, or OBE. It should not be anymore teacher culture-centered, but it should be learner culture-centered nowadays. No? And there should be an inclusive education, or IE. Again, please do not forget, MI is multiple intelligence, learner-centered is LC, OBE is outcomes-based education, and IE would be inclusive education. Okay, now, these are the steps, no, that we have to need, diba? Or these are the steps that we need to hurdle to ensure success of some learners and students. Now, as teachers, we are the facilitators for them to at least achieve, no, the last stage of this, for example, task. No? Okay, so as teachers, it is our obligation to help them. Now, once that they have, for example, achieved, they will be able to get, for example, the success that they would like to have. Now, knowledge, skills, values are some of the components also that we have to imbibe as teachers, and knowledge, skills, and values should also should also learn by students, not that we are actually handling. Okay, now what do I mean by inclusion? Diba? It's all about inclusion when you respect the diversities. Nowadays, LGBTQ plus, no, it's not only on the part of the teacher, but there are also students. Maybe they are suffering from, diba, identity. All you have to do is not to bully them, but also, diba, you have to respect. And when you respect, it's a form of diversity. And aside from diversity, it's a form of inclusion, no? Na tinatawag natin. Now, what's the variables inside? Diba? Assessment and grading in the context of inclusion. Okay, sabi nga dito, as we call for a paradigm shift, no, in teaching, diba, so as a louder call for a paradigm shift, no, in assessment and grading. Now, here, we call it as inclusive assessment and grading, our major mindset shift around the learning. Okay, so this is what you call, for example, diba, inclusivity. Now, how do we assess? Now, there are different stages, no? And I call it also as assessment drives learning and the cornerstone for effective instruction. The first one, ask yourself, no, as teacher, how do you know if the instruction is effective? Second would be, what should be assessed? No? Is it the variables inside readiness, progress, or level of success? No? The third question would be, who has the right power to assess? No? Is it the teacher? Is it the peer? Is it the self? Or others? No? Now, do you agree that the role of testing is not only to test students' knowledge, but more to test whether teaching is effective? No? So these are some of the questions that boils down, or the questions which arise, no? Or most probably that can be determined, no? Na tinatawag natin. Or are you sure, or do you think that assessing or learning, di ba, is important, di ba, is vital, or it can happen without a test, no? So these are some of the questions. And now these are some of the examples on, di ba, on the manner, or as far as what, no, assessment is concerned. There's what you call, di ba, summative, alternative, and the like. Okay, so these are some of the examples, no? Para doon sa mga nakikinig po, di ba? The viewers that we have, now these are some of the examples of assessment. Okay, and we call it also as what? Not, it goes with what? Formative and summative, and it can be, di ba, in a form of design for learning and differentiation techniques in the classroom. No? Once that you're going to be a teacher. Now, how do we gauge? How do we assess? No? Sabi ko nga po, when the cook tastes the soup, that's formative. No? But when the guest tastes the soup, that's summative. No? Under, di ba? And if I may cite educational research, Robert State. No? Oh, again, to improve teaching and learning, this is what you call, di ba, formative. No? But to judge teaching and learning, this is what you call summative. Okay, so these are some of the best example. Now, how do we give grades? No? In terms of the learning outcomes. No? Yan. Authentic assessment should prevail. Okay, there should be a grade expectation. Yes, no, you are asking your students what grades would you like, for example, to get. No, but then again, as teachers, maybe during the beginning or at the beginning of your class, you should set, di ba, your own orientations, di ba, on the manner of what, no, on the manner, for example, of the things that you are requiring for the students to learn and to submit, and some of the policies, no, so that at the end of the day, they will understand that these are the policies that you have imposed. No? And then if ever now that the learner is getting or not totally performing well, feedback should be also performed. Not only on the part of the teacher, but you call also the attention of the advisor, call the attention of the parents or even the guardians. And lastly, call also the attention of the students, or the learners. These are what I expect, performance expectations. So these are the variables as far as the learning outcomes happens to be concerned. Assessing and grading, diba, the learning outcomes, now these are the best example. You have to ask yourself, why do we give tests? Second, know if the learning takes place. And then the third, to know if the teaching is effective. And then, why do some students fail? Sabi ko nga po, it is maybe, or maybe at some point there's a problem already, diba, on the part of the teacher. Honestly, before, when during my stints, when I was a beginner also, I'm really idealistic. As teachers, I'm not saying that it's bad to be idealistic, but when you are already in the public setting, patience, understanding, you have to put it. You have to exert a lot of understanding. Teaching should be put here inside our heart. We have to be compassionate. What do I mean by being compassionate? You have to understand the situation. Maybe you are fortunate enough because there are some students who could not really afford to buy paper, who could not even afford to buy gadgets. So what kind of assessment, or diba, what kind of help would you like, for example, to extend so that the student or the learner will be able to at least get the right education for them? Okay, now let's define what's assessment is all about. Assessment and grading are interactive. Mutually, it should be mutually agreed upon by the student and the teacher. And the best example would be criteria, time, mode, and etc. Okay, sabi nga, it must be clear to everyone that we will be assessing and grading the learning outcomes. The learning outcomes. Authentic assessment nowadays should be provided by the teacher. Now, what do you mean by inclusive assessment? Inclusive assessment enables equal learning platform for all students. It does not mean easier assessment. It does not compromise standards. It does not treat individual student as a special case, but it improves the opportunities for all students to demonstrate how they have achieved their learning outcomes. And assessment accommodation should be made available for all students. So these are the best examples of
assessment modes which benefit everyone. Now these are the examples of the names of our learners, but that's generic. Not that's generics. Okay, rather generic. Okay, now inclusive assessment. What are the examples of alternative assessment? Now, if it's written exam, these are the best example: answering question in video, extra piece of coursework. Now, if it's essay, it can be multiple choice, video, di ba? A video and tape presentation. If it's a group presentation, what if there's no electricity? It can be, for example, an extra piece of coursework in case no, where social interaction causes anxieties no, or mental distress. Not because others are not comfortable in speaking in front of so many. So all you have to do is to ask no, the learner or your student to tape, and you'll be the one who's going to grade the output, and you have to assure that the recorded video presentation should only on the basis of for example assessment. No, it should not being shared not to the public, not a thesis, or it can be in multiple forms of presentation such as audio tapes, videos, and etc. So teachers should be compassionate. Teachers should be, for example, considerate. No? Okay. Now, forms of assessment and possible accommodation. Sabi ko nga po, learning difficulties, there are some learning difficulties. What are the possible accommodations? Diba? We call it as possible accommodations for those students who are PWDs. No? Additional time to read, process information, and an outline, etc. of marks to give students an idea how to distribute their time. No? Especially those students with what? Not dyslexia, no? Or those who are having a hard time in reading, no? Or blind or partially sighted. No? So these are some of the possible accommodation. And once that you have performed that, you are performing inclusion, you are performing diversity, and you respect the multiple intelligence of every learner that we have. Not and please do not forget still to perform HOTS or higher order thinking skills, no, na tinatawag. Under depth, and even up to now, we use that. Not so much knowledge, focus on the knowledge of the course content. Not so much focus on the knowledge of the course content, but we should emphasis in the application through outputs or the end product. Again, I call it as what? Authentic assessment. Whatever authentic assessment would it be, no, it's on the part of the teacher. I encourage the teacher, honestly, to at least be creative, no, in preparing their lessons. No, now the question it boils down. The question it's for you and to all the viewers who are watching nowadays. It's for you to answer. Are you assessing learning without a test? Not so. These are some of the best examples. Now knowledge, di ba? When we talk about knowledge, assessing by a test, now objective test items that require learners to recall or organize information. So these are some of the examples. Now fill in the blank, matching type, and so on. So now, there are some cases that we do not use this anymore specifically at this point in time. No? But when we talk about diba, authentic assessment, actually I've been mentioning this diba, for a couple of times. No? Performance tasks, investigation, research thesis, portfolios, journal writings, these are all application. But make sure that there should be a rubric where the students will know and the students will figure out diba, on the basis of what? The grading systems or what way they are going to get diba, the grades, not based on the rubrics, not involved. No? So these are some of the authentic assessment. We call it as authentic assessment. Okay, rubric. Teacher-centered culture, just like what I have mentioned. Nowadays, it's not anymore teacher-centered culture. But let me just discuss briefly, not just summarize. I'm going to summarize only what's the difference between learner-centered culture compared from teacher-centered culture. Now, as I speak about teacher-centered culture, it refers to learning situation in which the teacher asserts control over the material. No? He happens to be the manager of the classroom. No? But the aim of teacher-centered approach, no, to underlie or it underlies goal of a teacher-centered class, not order. But again, this is bureaucratic. This is very traditional. We allow our students to be participative. There's nothing wrong to make to have at least a classroom which is noisy but entertaining and entertaining in a sense that they are getting knowledge. No, they're getting knowledge. But at some point, there's nothing wrong also to have a quiet classroom. But I hope that as teachers, we should not terrorize our students. Okay. Now, the teacher-centered class success is defined by how well the students execute their responsibilities and the level of efficiency that exists in the learning environment. The question here, now the underlying goal of a student-centered class is student self-reliance. No, but nowadays it's not anymore being practiced. No, most likely we allow the students to discover for themselves through learner-centered culture. Again, there are 7 traits of learner-centered culture. First one would be learner-centered teacher. The first one should be under the category of the learner-centered teachers culture. Now, act as facilitator, provide anytime, no, demand and support, and it should embody the core values, no, of the institution. Okay. Next one would be the leverage of technology to personalize learning and commit to professional and personal growth under the learner for example, the teacher-centered culture. Now, what is the purpose and aim of the LCC or learner-centered culture? Putting the learner in learner-centered STEM. Not the aim is to focus on the learner experience from both the student and teacher perspective. Kaya nga lagi ko sinasabi, it's not anymore the teaching and learning, but it's, di ba, more on the learner and the teacher through learnings, no, na tinatawag po natin. Now, a shift from teacher-centered to learner. Now, a shift from teacher-centered to learner. Now, what is low lala? Now, please take note of this. This, di ba? Low lala, LO would be learning outcomes, no? Okay. Now, this approach refers to learning outcomes, learning activities, and learning assessment. Now, they should enjoy, for example, if you are teaching research, research should be fun when they apply the knowledge, and if they have the knowledge in thinking the possible title relative to their, for example, course, or relative to their research area, or relative maybe to their interest. Now, all you have to do is to allow them, honestly, to be part of the research process. But the first thing that they have to do is to think of the possible uh, or to think the possible items or titles that they have to create. Now, where do they base, no, the scope of their study? Definitely from their course, no. So ito yung tinatawag nating learning outcomes, learning activities, and learning assessment. Okay, there are 4 shifts to move from teacher centered to learner centered. Okay, tapusin lang natin. Now, it is not about technology, but the power of this shift is when the learner has the agency to make choices and in ways that meet their needs. Ito nga yung sinasabi ko kanina, 'di ba? Which is more important, or what is, 'di ba, what is more essential, 'di ba? Is it the knowledge in terms of technology, or is it the knowledge in terms of what the content when it comes to the subject matter? For me, it should be both nowadays, because sabi ko nga, we should be equipped. And how can we be equipped? Definitely you have to at least know, 'di ba, your flaws, and know your weaknesses, and make it more, 'di ba, make it positive. No, ako lagi ko sinasabi, 'di ba, that the more I learn, the more I do not know. Definitely you have to improve yourself, no? And through improving yourself, 'di ba, how can you improve yourself? It's through education. So ito yan. Okay, from compliance to learner agency. Learner agency is about moving students from passively responding to acting with purpose to reach a desired goal or outcome. So what do you mean by that? Definitely, there are some students who are passive. Now, definitely encourage them to be active, no? But with respect. Now, okay. Now, from compliance to learner, when students have an authentic purpose and audience beyond their teacher to share what they are learning, they are motivated to learn and often go above and beyond. Inspire them to, di ba? And allow the students to know their potentials. Now, acknowledging that success isn't black and white. Now, learning is a process, and it takes time, effort, and growth to achieve success even when we don't see it. Now, this happens to be the role, again, or the mantra of the teacher and the future teachers who are listening and who are actually a part of this review, no, program. Okay, from delivering content to authentic application, foundational knowledge and skills need to be developed, but we also need to balance so that we encourage our students to use authentic application, allow them to discover things. Ako, sabi ko nga po, what's the best example? I allow them to create, for example, an infomercial where they can apply, for example, the course that they have been with, no, or actually where the course that they are actually a part, no. I allow them to think of words that only applies in their course, and then I allow them to explain, for example, the meaning of it, no, or the register, or even the jargons of the words may be different, or it varies, no. We have jargons, we have registers, no, in the field of the education, which is not really essential, diba, to those students who are not taking up or who are not teachers, no. So you allow them not to share, but the way you teach, it's still the same. The only thing that varies would be the examples, and the examples are all applications of their knowledge, no. So these are some of the things, not that we have to understand, no. But before I end my lecture, again, I'm encouraging everyone to be part of, diba, of this program, and I hope, diba, that those students who are actually going to get their licensure examinations for teachers this coming March, I hope that you are going to make it and be part of our, diba, institution. Na? And I would like also to end, diba, my discussion by quoting, for example, the words, diba, coming from Bill Gates. Na? If I may quote, technology is just a tool in terms of getting the kids working together and motivating them. But the teacher is the more important, or the most important. Okay. Happy to learn, and good luck, everyone. Good day. Again, this is Dr. Eloy Aenlle. Good luck, and congratulations in advance. Good night. Good day.